Good evening and welcome to our fifth Future Thinkers event. On the first Tuesday of every month, we have held these fireside discussions to consider the future of any given topic. So far, we've looked at the future of events and decided that it's happening. The future of employment and considered the equality of the employer and employee work contract. The future of the high street, which is bright but community focused for the success in the future. And the future last month of mental wellness, positioning the health and well-being of all our colleagues at the forefront of any successful business. I'm Matthew Hodinott, and every month I come dressed for the occasion, and tonight is no different. I've done my research from the beach in Sandbanks on the south coast. I'm dressed a little bit like Holiday Ken and trying to work out how I'm going to be able to afford to retire down here. And probably most importantly, do I actually want to retire, full stop? So the topic of our conversation tonight is the future of retirement. Now, my concept of retirement has always been, I'll decide to plan it tomorrow. But at 52, and I know you don't believe that, tomorrow is a lot closer than it used to be. So tonight, joining me to discuss the future of retirement, I have all experts in future planning with a myriad of experiences from various demographics. I have Darryl Bates-Brownsword, Samantha Bradford, Rachel Parks and Nikki Pipping, and I'll let them all introduce themselves in their own inimitable style. Darryl, let's start with you. Welcome this evening. How are you?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Matthew. And thanks for having me on the show. And I'm feeling just a little bit jealous. Being based here in Oxford, I'm bang in the centre and every direction I go in, it's a long way to the beach, especially if I'm looking for some sand. So I run a business called Succession Plus here in the UK. And what Succession Plus does, we work with founders and owners of privately held SME and mid-market businesses, and we help them prepare their business for exit. We get the business exit ready. Why? So that owners can make the most of their life's work and exit on their terms. We'll help them maximize value, leave a legacy, whatever it is that's important to them. And we started the business just because we saw that, the owners in the marketplace weren't aware that you need to prepare your business for exit. They just have this pipe dream and they treat their business as their pension and, head in the sand, whatever it is, hope it'll all be okay.
Brilliant. Thank you, Darryl. And to be honest, that's me, head in the sand. So hopefully tonight is going to be really helpful to me. Sam Bradford.
Oh, hi, Matthew. Thank you for inviting me on this evening. And just a little bit about me, that I'm Sam Bradford and I run my own financial planning company. I'm a chartered financial planner, have been doing the job now over 20 years as a planner, 30 years in the industry, but absolutely love pensions because people, I'm a pension geek if there is such a thing, but people just don't understand them. And when I set my company up, which was only, it's a year and a half ago now, I set the actual business up. So I've been doing the role a long time, but decided it was time for me to step out from behind my big corporate job and actually put my money where my mouth is and go out and educate the world on these different various financial planning topics, pensions being one of them. But the thing is that a lot of it is all down to how complicated our regulators make it. And so people get turned off from it. So that's why the company was consciously called Simplicity Financial Planning, because that's exactly what I aim to bring people, that simplicity. And hopefully a future like you've got, Matt, sat on the South Coast with your Hawaiian shirt on.
I'm not convinced it's my future yet, Sam, to be honest. I don't even know if I want it to be my future, but it does sound glamorous. And you're right, Sam, we've known each other for a while, and it is simplicity, and hopefully that's what you're gonna help with us this evening. We also have on tonight, we have a mother and daughter combo, and I'd like to welcome Rachel as well. Rachel Parks, how are you, Rachel? Thank you for coming.
I'm good, and I'm the daughter, just to make that very clear. I'm very well. Thanks for having me, Matthew.
Oh, thanks for coming, Rachel. Appreciate it.
So I'm Rachel Parks, and quite unimaginatively followed in my mum's footsteps, and I'm a financial advisor as well. So at the moment, I'm based in Norwich, just stuck bang in the east, which is lovely, but I seem to be relocating back.
Nearer to the beach than Darryl, though.
I am. I haven't been today, which would have been lovely, but I am a little bit closer to the beach. That's very true. So as I say, I'm a financial advisor as well. I qualified last year. I'm in a slightly different position to my mum in that my focus is, although I do look at pensions as well, my personal focus and kind of my target market is more the under 35s. So I look a lot at things like, you know, beginning your investment journey and mortgages, but, you know, I think we'll touch on this a lot. It's never too early to start thinking about your retirement plans. And so something that I'm really passionate about is actually letting the under 35s know that this is something that you should start looking at as soon as you can, and squirreling money away now, you know, and it's only going to grow your pension pot. You do need to start thinking about it as soon as you can. So a slightly different perspective there.
Brilliant. Thank you ever so much, Rachel. And Nikki, definitely not last, and well, last but not least, I should say.
Fine.
Nikki, how are you? Welcome to us.
I'm good. Yeah, I'm Nikki, and I'm based in Milton Keynes, so also a long way from the sea, unfortunately.
Yes. Sorry.
Such is life. I'm a financial planner as well, but I've not been in it as long as you, Sam, as you know. It's the second career for me. So I came to this about 7-8 years ago. And actually, I came at around the time pension freedom happened, when the government made the changes to pension rules. I'd been being nagged by my own financial planner to join him for a long time. And it was only when those rules changed when I thought that pensions got a little bit more exciting. And I felt very passionate about helping people understand pensions, similar to you, Sam, but with a focus on the new pension rules and being able to preserve your wealth, because sadly both my parents have passed away, and with them their pension pots, and I didn't want that to happen to other people just for lack of knowledge now that the rules have changed. And my focus in terms of clients, so slightly different to both Rachel, Sam and Darryl, is that I specifically aim to help women coming out of a divorce, looking to take that next step into their life and look at the effect of that divorce on their own personal finance and pension pot, because it's quite catastrophic, as you can imagine. So that's where I come at it from.
Brilliant, Nikki. Thank you so much. Thank you all of you for joining us this evening. I think we'll go straight into the questions, and we've focused a lot. Well, I say we've discussed a lot over the last 5 Future Thinkers. The topic inevitably always comes up about COVID. And I really want to start there and see if we can finish on a real positive. But I'd like for us to ponder and consider, and I'll come to you on this first, Darryl, is how do you feel the last 12 to 18 months has affected the future of our planning and how we think about everything? Are we more prepared? Are we thinking about this more, or are we sticking our heads in the sand? Darryl, what's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, look, what I've experienced is, I don't know if it's changed people's attitudes towards pension just as a result of the last 12 or 18 months. But the business owners that I've been talking to, a lot of them, you know, a lot of business owners on the whole, they get to a stage and they go, hey, look, I'm going to get out of here in 3 to 5 years. And, you know, you speak to them next year and it's still 3 years, and you speak to them a year later and it's still 3 years. And the record I've had is I was speaking to a guy and he says, hey, yeah, I'm 15 years into my 3-year plan. So business owners on the whole, why they're entrepreneurs, they love working, they're energetic, they're passionate about what they do. Some of them just don't plan for the future and they don't get out. But every business owner is going to get to the point where they're going to exit their business, whether they plan it or not. They are going to exit their business one way or another. And a lot of them start thinking about it. And over the pandemic, a number of business owners have been working from home and realize that their business can run, you know, without them at the helm, you know, day to day. And a lot of business owners have got to the point where they've actually enjoyed that break, and it has accelerated an exit for them. So a lot of them are now going, hey, look, I want to exit in the next 12 months. But that kind of, you know, that's the experience I'm having. It kind of doesn't answer the question of, has it changed the attitude towards retirement and pension planning? So yeah, that's what I'm seeing. I don't know what everyone else is seeing out there.
I think that's my general feeling, and this is really personal, Darryl, but my general feeling, it's exactly how you've described it, really. You know, we've had this really quite quite fortunate period of time for some of us, and I count myself in amongst that, in as much as you are working from home, and there's that different experience now, isn't there, very much, and it does make you begin to think a little bit more about where you're going. I don't know what you've seen, Nikki. Has it been fairly similar like that? You're new into the pensions market. Has that been?
Newish.
Sorry,
compared to 30 years.
Sorry, newish then. Nikki.
Yeah, so I don't know. The pandemic was really weird. I don't know if anybody else found the same thing, but we had this expression really early on that we're all in the same boat. And I really didn't find that. I feel that we're all in the same storm, but our boats are very different. So we had people at one extreme, you know, using the analogy, a private yacht with a helicopter on top, furloughed or got nice assets, thanks very much, or able to take the foot off the gas, or they could retire a bit early and they've been fine, right down to the other extreme where they've got a leaky canoe and they're up the creek without a paddle, you know, and you've got that broad spectrum. So there's some people that have, carpe diem, they've seized the day, they're like, yeah, actually, do you know what, I've realized I'm going to die at some point, like mortality's hit me in the face, I'm going to go now whilst the going's good. And other people have realised, oh, crikey, I'm just going to have to keep on working longer because this has massively impacted my pension planning, because now I haven't had any income for an extra couple of years and I've had to dip into my savings just to keep bread on the table. So it really depends on everybody's personal circumstances, and we've experienced both ends of the spectrum.
Really, that does put it into perspective, doesn't it? When you look at it, you know, like that, just how, you know, how different it is for everybody, and it's
some people had businesses, didn't they, and they dried up overnight. If you're a self-employed physiotherapist, for example, or something that was massively affected day one of COVID lockdown, you've got no income, none. You know. So
how, if you're on that sort of, you know, if your business dries up overnight and you suddenly lose 12 months worth of income, how long typically in terms of pensions does it take you to recuperate that sort of loss in terms of your pension pot? Does that just get pushed to one side and you live for the moment, I suppose?
Yeah, I think it's down to that hierarchy of needs, isn't it? And you deal with the here and now before you deal with the future. So you're then recuperating your savings pot, or you're trying to pay the bills, or you've put your mortgage on holiday, so then you've got to pay extra on your mortgage before you then start looking at your pension. So I think what you realistically will be seeing in those circumstances is the pension being, you know, retirement being put back several years, probably, you know, unless something else more positive happens down the line.
And Sam, what's your experience over the last 12 months? You've got a brand new business. I know it's been chaotic, not chaotic, but it's been full on, hasn't it?
It's funny, actually, because Nikki, you just said about the analogies of the different peoples in their different boats, and I look at it from the perspective, there were some people, like you say, with the helicopter and launch pad and everything else, you know, everything in their yacht, because they were having all that time and gloating almost about how much they're taking on new activities, and my head was down 110%. I didn't look up for air for the whole of the year, and I was jealous, quite frankly, of those people that were saying, oh, it must be great, you can take up this activity and that activity. Like, when can I do that? But what I'd noticed was people, would absolutely stop their funding. And I didn't necessarily, bearing in mind it was a brand new business, so I was actually helping people to start saving, and fortunately we had a few people that were doing that. But this year have actually bought a new practice, and what I'm now doing is renegotiating, setting back up their regular payments again from where they cancelled them last year. So that's the other side of it, which is quite interesting, and renegotiating what they can afford and looking at what the projections will be for their own retirement. What has been really interesting, it's exactly what we've just said, is that at least on 2, maybe 3 actually occasions in the last couple of weeks, as people have started to go back to work full time, they have come to me and asked me to do a full cash flow projection on their current circumstances to find out if we can bring forward their retirement plans. And only a week ago, I was able to actually share some good news with this person because of all the various pensions they've had, mainly as a result of employer funded pensions as well as employee funded. So different, Darryl, to the business owners, and I'll come back to that in a moment. But yeah, when you start to add everything together, when you start to look into each of them and put them all into a cash flow model, is quite surprising. And also people are starting to realize they don't need as much money as they thought they did, because lockdown has helped them understand that this old way of life of spending lots of money is a bit false. Actually, you could be perfectly happy on less income, or doing less, I should say. Very quickly, before we ask Rachel her experience, Darryl, coming back to your business owners, what's really interesting is prior to my business launch, I worked for Barclays Wealth and predominantly dealt with people who sold businesses. I would say there were, well, probably 99% of them never had a pension. At the point they sold out their businesses for lots and lots of money, they would come to me having had no pension, or maybe a very, very small one. So you're just playing catch up the whole time, and they've missed out on so much tax efficiency. And that's one of the things I want to take into this business now, is the education, as I said before, so people don't miss out on it, because it's there for the taking. It's just misunderstanding. That's the only reason people don't do it.
Business owners tend to be risk takers, and what they're doing is betting everything on black, so to speak. You know, they've got all their eggs in just one basket, and they go, hey, my business is my pension, but they don't do any pension planning even around getting their business exit ready. So absolutely what you're sharing is similar experiences that I see, and sort of partly the reason for setting up Succession Plus. You know, don't put all your eggs in one basket, prepare your business. And you've got it, and interesting, in preparing for exit, we need to prepare the owners. And interestingly, Matthew, we talk about preparing for what the next phase is. We've never talked about retirement, because I think with this generation, and I include myself in that, and I'm a little older than 52, but yeah, we talk about, you know, I haven't even considered retirement. I figure I'll gradually step down, but I'm hearing about 55 redefined. You know, you hit your mid 50s, and no way are we thinking about gradually winding down and just, you know, sitting down watching telly all day in our slippers. You know, there's still a stack to do. You know, we've got energy, we're fit, we're healthy. The NHS is keeping us breathing and keeping us alive, and they will do for many years yet. So there's, you know, with this generation, there's a whole new attitude towards what's next.
I think both of what you said, well, all of what you've said so far, and my apologies, Rachel, I will come
that's okay.
Just one second. I think what you've said is perfectly right, and I must be honest, I feel slightly like I'm in the corner being chastised, but I do have that pot over there, and all of my eggs are in that pot. So maybe I need to come and talk to all of you later on about this. But Rachel, what's your experience? I think this is really, really such a positive conversation to have, because we've got someone looking at it from completely the opposite end of the funnel. How do you feel about it, and what's your experience?
Yeah, it's a really interesting perspective to come at it from, really, because, you know, I think a lot of young people, perhaps for the last few years, have had their heads in the sand a little bit. You know, we kind of, a lot of the news is very doom and gloom about, you know, well, the millennials are having such a hard time getting on the housing ladder. And, you know, that's just one example of, you know, a lot of young people, I think, are feeling like they don't really know where to start in terms of feeling in control of their own lives and in control of their own money. But I think, you know, everyone's had something horrible happen in their lives, whether it be a pandemic or something personal at some point. And sometimes something bad has to happen for you to go, okay, enough's enough. You know, I can have some control over what I do and how I spend. And that's what I'm starting to see, is a lot of younger investors are actually thinking, okay, no, now's the time. You know, I've been kicking the can down the street and thinking, I'll keep saving to go on the property ladder, or I'll take the risk and start a new profession, and, you know, perhaps finish university and things like that. And I think now that something has happened that has stopped their normal life completely, it's given people a lot of time to think about what they really want in life and what their priorities are. And so perhaps I'm not seeing people rushing in to invest in a pension, but I think that younger people, as a result of COVID, are doing a lot more forward planning in general.
Rachel, share your own experience of what you've now decided to do since the pandemic.
Yeah, so I'll be joining Simplicity with Sam as of July. So, you know, I'm a part of a really small IFA in Norwich, and I felt like maybe I didn't have kind of the room to grow to what I wanted to do. And really, yeah, I mean, I'm a good example of COVID was a push for me. You know, life was so interrupted, and it gives you a chance to, you can't run away from your thoughts. You can't bury yourself as much in socializing and chasing the next thing, because you do have so much time to think. And so, yeah, I mean, but I'm one of so many that I've seen, you know, from clients, but also people that I know. I think people are going, okay, now's the time to do the thing I've been putting off, or start to invest, or do this or do that.
No, has that been a big decision for you? I mean, obviously it's life-changing for you to move away from where you are and to do that, but has that been, this is a career progression, or this is a lifestyle choice for you?
I think it's a bit of both. You know, it was kind of one of those things where it was a kicking a can down the street. You know, I knew that maybe I wasn't feeling the most fulfilled here, but I thought, oh, eventually things will change. But I think you do wake up and you think, well, I can change it. It is in my control. I can't just wait for something to change that's immaterial and it will do the work for me, you know. So COVID really gave me the chance to take stock of what I wanted. And I think a lot of people's priorities have changed too, you know. People are being a lot more family focused. Perhaps they've lost loved ones due to COVID, and they've realized actually the people in your life, you need to make the most of your time with them. So, you know, I do think that people are reevaluating what's important to them in life. And so they're thinking that little bit more into the future than they were before.
Because Rachel takes it to the extreme and not only wants to live closer to her mother, but wants to work in the same as well. So we'll have this conversation in 6 months' time and see how it works out.
You're beaming like a Cheshire cat at the moment, Sam.
I know, I am.
It's an interesting point though, because it does usually take some sort of event for people to take stock of where they are and make changes to their finances. So for me, obviously I'm looking at the divorce, but it could be we have people who are bereaved, or they've lost a job, or they've got a new job. There's usually an event that triggers somebody looking. They might move house and find all these statements and think, oh my gosh, wow, they kept these since 1962. Or the retirement firms start writing to you and they go, you're getting quite old, you probably need to do something about it. And luckily they're writing a little bit earlier. We don't get them at 65 quite so much going, you're retiring this year. I get people at 50 that go, my pension company's just written to me and told me I'm getting a bit old and I need to do something about I'm 50. I'm like, well, it's not that far away now, is it? So, but there's usually a catalyst. You don't wake up one day. I shouldn't think any of us get a phone call from somebody who goes, oh, I woke up this morning and thought, willing to sort the pension out. There's a catalyst somewhere.
Yeah, I think I'll let you into a little secret, Nick, and I know this isn't the Matthew show, but I genuinely, and I promise you this is true, yesterday I shredded a bank statement from 1983. Excellent. And I had my first salary slips that also got shredded as well. Awesome. And I've been moving house however often with all of this stuff. Oh my God, it's and but the thing was is I had a pension from Sun Alliance back in, I don't know, the late 80s, early 90s, that for whatever reason, I think I enjoyed going to a pub or something, so I stopped paying into it. And that's what, 25 years ago, I think. And just the concept now, certainly talking to all of you, that, you know, that £30 a month over 12 months times 25 years or whatever, that's a vast amount of money, really, isn't it? And yeah, it's and I pick up on what Darryl was saying earlier on, is I have no intention of retiring. I'm still young, fit and healthy, very much like all of you on here. And life just seems that we're pushing that boundary of, you know, of how much further till we do retire. So, I mean, the retirement age is what, 67 at the moment?
Yeah, well, that's state pension age, but you can take your pension from 55 onwards. Really? And then you get a 30 plus year retirement now. So it's very different. It's funny. I mean, I'm doing a master's at the moment in finance, and my research topic is retirement planning. But it's painful at the moment because I'm in my last 7 weeks, so I'm living and eating and breathing this whole research topic. But what has been fascinating is I've done 8 interviews now with people, and every single one of these people only took up financial planning for their retirement about 3 or 4 years before their intended retirement age. And do you know what's worse? Every single one of these people worked within financial services. So it's not like they didn't have access to it around them. And that just is really completely, for me, it's blown me away. It's what I expected, but I didn't expect it quite so much.
And how happy are they, Sam? Have they all retired, and how happy are they at the moment?
Well, it's funny actually. I expected, so my topic was to see whether people phased in retirement or not. But the majority of these people took full retirement and didn't phase in. So they basically, what they mean by that is they've gone right up to the point of retirement, and then one day they're working and the next day they're not, rather than reducing their working pattern down. And I don't know why I assumed it would be the other way around, but actually what I now realize is not always is an option for people, particularly in the industry I was researching. Actually, these people were of certain levels and they couldn't take part-time role. So they decided to go full on retirement, but then they've started, and these people are only just over the line, so it's within 5 years of retirement. So they're just starting to go, oh, I want to do something more now, or maybe I'll give back a bit to community, or maybe I'll start a new business. And that's what's going to be interesting, actually. I do think that since COVID, there have been a lot more people starting to think about their own businesses and setting themselves up. So I think we're going to start to see this growth of entrepreneurialism now in the UK, and particularly within this third wave, this third generation. Whatever we want to call it. And I don't like, and one of my questions when I do the interviews is, what do you think of when you think of the word retirement? Do you like the word? And no one likes the word. Everybody thinks of old people sitting in front of the TV, Zimmer frames and the works, but no, it's not, is it? And Darryl, you're right. I mean, you don't look like you're older than 52, by the way, but however old you are, you just have to keep your mind engaged. If you're fit enough and your brain is able to take on more learning. I know that I've enjoyed the research I've been doing. I'm just never going to do any more until I retire. I would like to go back to it. But yeah, it's fascinating. So much to learn out there.
So for me, my dad is a bit of a role model. He retired at 55, and he was in the military, and actually with 54, he was sort of booted out, and they gave him a package as well. So he's been retired for over 30 years now, and he's sharp as a tack. And the reason he's a role model to me is because, I don't know, this is just my theory and research based on both mum and dad, who are both still, absolutely sharp and physically active. They live on a property with a couple of acres, so they're physically active all the time, even if it's just mowing the lawn. So they have to be active all the time there. But the other thing is that dad works half a day, half days, 3 or 4 days a week for the equivalent to the British Legion. And he's had to learn new skills and advocacy skills. And what he does is he goes and represents retired servicemen to ensure that they get all of the full claims and they can get everything they can. So it had to keep him mentally sharp. And I speak with them every week, and we haven't been able to catch up physically with basically Australia won't let me in anymore because of COVID. I think they'll hold me at the border for 3 months because I'm based in the UK. But so we haven't been able to catch up physically, but they're sharp as a tack. And if I'm half as sharp as they are in my 80s, well, I'm going to outlive my pension, so I'm just going to have to keep working.
I think that's a really valid point, isn't it, Darryl? There's and forgive me, Sam, you may well have heard me speak about this before, but there's a whole body of research by the National Geographic and a chap called Dan Buettner, who basically evidence the longest lived areas of the world. So that's a bit of a tongue twister after you spend the day on the beach retiring. But it's, did I say that again?
Been on the beach today, you didn't say.
Didn't mention it, did I? Yeah, so Dan Buettner has been around the world and highlighted 9 communities in various places, such as Okinawa in Japan and some parts in Central America, Costa Rica. And one of the things that came out of it is all of these communities, which have got ages well into their centenary years, and also a midlife morbidity rate, which is far lower than anywhere else in the world. But all of these communities have got these 9 different traits in common, and a lot of them are to do with food and diet and exercise. But it is the exercise, it's getting up and moving, and it's the community spirit, it's the keeping active, it's the keeping involved with people and keeping sharp, as you mentioned, Darryl. Is that the general feeling that you get from the business owners? Is that perhaps why they don't want to retire, Darryl, or they don't think about succession planning?
I think for some of them, absolutely. I meet a lot of business owners who are in their 70s, and 87 is the record. You'll be pleased to know that this guy did actually hand the business over to his kids, and we were working in working with the kids and make sure that the succession plan was there. But he still goes into work every day because that's his life. That's what he loves doing. He's fit and healthy. That's what gives him his jollies. He hasn't got a position of leadership or in the business, but he's just in there, part of it. So there's a lot of business owners. I think part of the thing is back to all their eggs in one basket. And one of the things that we consider and we work with them is going, you need to get some proper personal financial planning so that because what a lot of business owners want is to be able to have a choice and know that the choice is there. And when they're neglecting it and ignoring it, they've just gone, oh, well, I need X amount of money to, from my business exit. And they've got no idea often about if that's enough or not. And it's often just a big number of what they think the business owes them. So they're not aware of their business valuation. So we encourage them to work with someone, a personal financial planner, to make sure that they're secure outside of their business in their journey along the way.
So, sorry, Sam, carry on.
No, I was going to say, Nikki and Rachel, we do the same, don't we, with diversification within our investment portfolios, sitting inside of these different wrappers, pension being one of them. It is no different for a business owner, but they're either, well, like you say, they're just not, they just think of it just as their own business, but forget actually, perhaps we need to hit the pain point for them of the tax man, perhaps, because actually the tax man or the tax saving you could have by just investing some of their business profits within a pension. If they're limited, there's no corporation tax on that. And it's just going to come out without any taxation, build up tax-free growth as well, and the potential for a tax-free lump sum further down the line. I mean, all of those things, if you leave it inside your business, all of the not only taxation every year through corporation tax, even if they don't take it, but when they come to exit, as you know, there's only a certain amount that can be sheltered from the tax man. So, and also it's not just a pension as well. So again, go back to diversification. You've got all sorts of different schemes that can help keep business relief, for example. So business relief schemes are very popular for business owners exiting businesses, but often they've never heard of them because they've not been in that room with somebody to actually help explain it to them. So more education.
I was thinking exactly the same as you were saying. In my head, I'm just thinking of all the tax problems, and it's happened recently with clients, that you, like you saying, Darryl, they've got their business, they're in their head, they just want to sell the business, bring the money over, but that money then comes into their personal wealth. And if they just invest that in, well, they wouldn't be able to do it all in one go anyway, would they? But into ISAs or whatever it is they're going to do, that if they're not working, they've then lost the boat to pay all of that chunk of money into pensions instead of doing it yearly. All that money becomes in your personal wealth. And depending on the size of that amount of money, a lot of it could go in inheritance tax, and you've lost that ability to help your kids, which you're probably the same, Sam and Rachel, but when you speak to people, one of the goals people have is helping their kids, is providing a leg up for the next lot coming through, because like you touched on, Rachel, you can't afford a house, you can't afford this, that and the other, and our role really is intergenerational planning as well. You bring that money from the business into your own personal bank account, leave it in the bank, taxman's happy days.
Rubbing their hands together, aren't they?
Brilliant. And that's our job, isn't it, to try and educate. There's so many different rules, so many different schemes that are amazing, and it just takes a bit of planning. And actually, the earlier you can get involved, the earlier you can start with planning and pensions and savings and all the different routes, because I think the better.
Tax planning is a big opportunity, absolutely. But I'm just trying to get inside the heads of these business owners, and I think maybe one thing that they believe is that there's always something there's always money or areas for their business where they need to invest in their business to keep the business growing, or I need to keep the money available in case I go through a tough spot, you know, and I need the cash to, you know, to fund the business and fund the bills through that tight spot. So, yeah, as a business owner, there's always stresses and all these other areas that are more important that they're considering, or, you know, rainy day or what have you. So yeah, look, tax planning and all the arguments we've put forward tonight are obviously sound, logical arguments, but it's the feelings and the energy that I think we need to work on and address the fears.
Is that something, and perhaps Rachel, you're best to answer this then, is that, we touched on it really briefly about this whole word retirement. Is it a horrible word at your age, or at the start of a working journey, or you know, as a midlife business owner or something? Is it just a horrible word, and should we look at perhaps a different way of describing it, really?
I think that it's not necessarily a negative word. I think that if you were to ask anybody potentially under the age of 40, I think that they would probably say that the stereotype that we have in our heads of retirement, you know, like you say, being old, sitting in front of the TV, it's not sustainable. You know, if we're looking at now 30 plus years, you know, our life expectancy, we've got the amazing NHS, you know, is it something that actually, do young people want it? You know, it's you're told, oh, retirement, well, that's when you really live your life. That's when you really enjoy yourself. But I think that a lot of young people would see it as something quite boring. And, you know, you have to look at working and retirement side by side, the kind of two sides of the same coin. And I think we've seen, haven't we, that what's defined as work has changed so much. You know, there are things now that people do, you know, that would never have been considered jobs. You know, we have influencers, you know, who they just sell things for money. You know, they walk around in a designer dress, and that's going to pay, you know, the bills. So what if what's defined as work is going to change, then ultimately what is defined as retirement is going to change.
Yeah,
you know.
I think that's really strong point there. Nikki, were you going to say something there?
No, I just think it's a really good point, and it comes back to what Darryl was saying about business owners, but it's for everybody really. It comes down to choice. The biggest issue we all have, or the desire everybody has, is choice. You know, not to be forced to retire and not to be forced to have to keep working. If you've got the choice to make the decision whether to stay on in a business or to retire or to part-time work, I find most people want a flexible approach these days. But you also need to bear in mind your health might not keep up with you. But either way, yeah, choice is the biggest thing. If we can put a plan together that gives that person the choice. So if at 55 they're fit and healthy and they've got the choice to stop work if they want to, they don't have to, but they've got the option, and that is possibly enough.
See, and that makes so much sense, doesn't it, Nikki? You are literally just building in a long-term plan. There's a gentleman that I follow who's an influencer, Rachel, and he his plan is to live to 156. And he used to be an English teacher. He's now a very famous coach in America, and he does all sorts of things like that. And that's his goal. That's it. So effectively, he could have 90 years of, you know, if he retired at the state pension age or whatever, he's got 90 years of living off a pension, in inverted commas, or having to plan for that. That's a massive period of time, isn't it? And in reality, you know, he's going to do something else. But yeah, maybe that's where we should be thinking, is changing our view away from you know, the slippers and TV to actually bringing some benefit.
Definitely. And I think that, you know, life in general has become less linear. You know, I don't think many people nowadays follow, you know, you leave school at 18 and then you settle down with a husband or a wife and then buy your house, you have your kids, and it's life doesn't follow that concrete path anymore, you know. And we've touched on this idea of phasing retirement too. You know, I think that as a younger person, I have no intention of waking up on my 60th birthday and going, right, well, that's it now, I'm a retiree, this is my new life, you know, because I'm in a job, and I'm fortunate, I understand that I'm very fortunate that I'm in a job that I enjoy, you know. So some people are in a position where they'd love to just pack it all in one day, you know, but I think that that's not what is expected anymore. you know, you have that flexibility about how you, as Darryl said, enter the next phase of your life. You know, it's not this bullet point end to your working life. It's just the next phase, you know, whatever that looks like.
That was the perception of years ago, when you would get one job, you start off with one job and you'd stay with the same industry all the way through to 65, and then you'd have the carriage clock, the handshake, and off you go into the sunset. And if you were lucky to get 5 years and of good retirement, and that would be that has all gone, and it's now more of a blended retirement, like you say, Rachel, phasing in, having another career. There is a question in the chat. Shall we answer that live? Because I've just
yes, please, go on.
It was just about whether a pension is one of the most tax efficient ways to save money for retirement. It is one of them, and it's not the only one. Nikki touched on ISA, because there's just different ways. They have different tax rules, but one of the things that pensions have over an ISA these days is that it is actually out of your estate if you're likely to have an inheritance tax issue in the future. And a lot of people do not understand that rule. That's been a really recent change since pension freedoms in 2015. So that is why we are, as financial planners, and I'm sure the girls will acknowledge this, that we are now saying to our clients when they get to retirement age, if there are other sources of wealth that they can draw an income from that's going to be reducing the estate size so that there's less inheritance tax for their loved ones, this is this intergenerational planning Nikki mentioned earlier, then that's where we are likely to suggest they take income from first. So when it comes to retirement planning, there's two phases. There's accumulating your wealth through different different tax wrappers, one of them being a pension. Other investments are also included. And the second is decumulation. And that's at the point where you either need a bit of extra income because you're starting to reduce your working pattern and therefore your earnings are reducing and you need to supplement your income, or you're stopping entirely in one go, you need to draw an income. And then we would have a further conversation, and coming back to very beautifully dovetailing into choice again, if we've done our work right for our clients, which we would have done, or if people have come and sought financial advice sooner, they will have had so many more investment vehicles that they could have saved their money into to provide them with that choice when they get to the retirement age. So the word pension isn't really the word I like anymore. I think retirement is fine. It's pension. It's a very old-fashioned word. It actually is the name of one specific vehicle, when actually I think when it comes to retirement, income can be brought in from a variety of different sources, even property. Yeah. Many people have second properties, third properties that they're drawing income from. So it's about that blend of different choices of where to take income from. And a pension, however, in answer to that question, yes, very tax efficient. So don't overlook it.
So I think really, Sam, we looked briefly, Rachel, at the word retirement and whether that was a wrong word, but you've hit the nail on the head. The whole concept of pension makes you perhaps feel, maybe that's a description of an age position. I'm not explaining it very well, but we always think of pensioners, and maybe that's a description of that, and maybe that's the fear that we have in our 20s about actually planning for that period of time, because it seems so far away, doesn't it? Have you planned for it, right? Sorry, Darryl.
It's interesting you raised the word pension, because I'm not a financial planner, but the word pension, if you like, it's just not used in Australia anymore. And what everyone has is a superannuation fund, and you don't qualify for the pension anymore, so to speak. Every employee gets a certain amount of their salary package is structured to go straight into their pension, and it's portable. You change jobs, you take that pension with you, and you say to your new employer, my 10% goes into here, thanks very much. And you have control over your super fund.
And that's really valid, because it was one of the things, Darryl, that I'd like to have come on to really, and this I hope will be quite pertinent as well to you, Rachel, is should businesses actually do more to prepare people for that pension, that retirement, that change in their life? Really, should there be a period of time where businesses are preparing you to work 4 days a week and 1 day in the community or something, and there's slowly a crossover, so that we're almost taking the experience and then passing that experience onto the community. You've got a wry smile on your face there, Darryl.
Oh, you're making me feel really uncomfortable.
Sorry, I really didn't mean to.
No. Look, I guess, where am I on that one? I guess businesses are set up to benefit the shareholders, and they, you know, unless they're social enterprises, you know, that every business has a purpose. Now, having said that, and I'm playing with you a bit about making me feel uncomfortable, one of the big exit planning strategies that we're really big fans of is employee ownership. So one of the, you know, structures is, you know, I believe in everyone taking responsibility for their own path and their own destiny. And part of that is if we're all employee owners, then when we can contribute to the wealth of the business and continue the profit generation, and businesses only prosper and sustain if they're making a profit. If they're not making a profit, they can't serve their market and solve problems in the marketplace, whatever those problems are. But there's plenty of problems that need solving. So I'm a fan of businesses being profitable, and you know, if philanthropy is a part of the business mission and sharing and redistributing profits like that, then it becomes a choice. But mandating it, I'm not a fan of.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, what would you feel, Rachel? Would you like to join a business that is employee owned, or would you, because we speak a lot, and certainly we've spoken in the future of employment, for example, we spoke about what benefit package the millennial generation would like to see. Do you think that they would like to see some sort of retirement package?
I do think so. I think that maybe I'm going in a slightly different direction or a slight tangent, but I think in terms of pension benefits, I think that what young people at the moment are lacking is guidance on why it's important to, you know, because obviously we have the situation with auto enrollment, you know, so I think young people need guidance on why it would be beneficial to contribute that 3 or 4% every month, you know. That could be another couple of nights down the pub every month, you know. Why would they, or maybe even one night if it's a big one, but you know, why would you want to sacrifice that right now when it's for 50 years time, you know? And I think if there is more information that actually for young people is, and it's accessible, and it's something that little bit every month long term gives you, we go back to it, gives you that choice, you know. And that's what it's all about. It's not about, oh, you need to save so you can go on that cruise that you don't really want to go to, but you're told you should go to because that's what you do when you're retired. It's actually, okay, well, it gives you that choice. It affords you whatever you think retirement looks like for you, because it will be different for everyone here, and it will be different for everyone in the world, you know. It's what do you see for yourself, and how do we actually get that in place for you? I would say then, you know, kind of going back into the benefit side of it, I think realistically young people nowadays would probably be more interested in the benefits for right now, you know, in terms of perhaps help with childcare or more flexible holiday and things like that, things that are going to benefit them now. But I think that retirement is perhaps often seen as the very bottom of the list in terms of, oh, I'm applying for a job, I'm looking for the benefits. Oh, okay, well, you know, that's good to know, not really important right now, you know. But I think that it would be great for young people to have the guidance from their employer that, well, this is actually what this does, you know, not just saying retirement package, actually saying, well, this is what it can afford you, you know, and perhaps then working with a financial advisor, you know, that sort of thing, to actually then give them more tailored advice. But yeah, I would say clearance on what it would actually mean for them in the future.
Nikki, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I was just thinking as you were talking there, Rachel, that you're right. It's almost seen begrudgingly, I've got to put this money to one side and I can't get it until I'm 55, and that's, well, it'll be 57 or 58, and that's a million years away, and then it's really boring and I don't want it, and it's you're kind of begrudging it. But maybe employers and financial planners could work together and provide that education. And actually it needs to be being done at school, if I'm honest. I get very upset if schools aren't doing this and involving us. The kids come out of school with no idea about money at all. Like, we've got whole generations of people that have no idea about money.
Teaching how credit cards work and mortgages.
Yeah, credit cards and mortgages, basic stuff, have an emergency pot and all those sorts of things. So it needs to start at school. But, you know, if you work in a big company, if you work, say, here at Network Rail or Abbey National, whatever they are now, Santander, you've probably got people that come in, you've got pension people that come and talk to you. If you work for a small company or you're self-employed and you don't even have auto-enrollment, you're a contractor, there's still segments that are lacking in that education side of it and provision as well. So maybe we can be doing more to offer that out or help or whatever, because it's about education, it's about providing flexibility and people understanding that, you know, you don't have to just retire on day one and this is your pot, it's your bank, it's your money, you get it, you choose. It's choice and flexibility and education.
So, which brings me, I think, nicely, Nikki, on to what on earth is Rishi going to do, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, going to do with pensions full stop in the future? Because we spent a bucket load of cash over the last 12 months. Are they still going to be safe? Is that still going to be the most tax efficient way of doing it?
You mean the state pension or?
Yeah, or the money that we put into pensions or ISAs or whatever. Is there any way he's going
to... Every budget, we all worry that the higher rate tax relief is going to go. Well, not worry, but we think that that's an obvious place that will go, because for those that don't know, everybody gets basic rate tax relief. That's one of the reasons why we use pensions, because you're getting extra money from the government to incentivise you to save for your pension because they can't afford to do it. And if you're a higher rate earner, then you can get additional rate tax relief. Every year we think that's going to go. I don't know. I'm not him. I don't have it on speed dial on my phone. But they are moving the state pension back, as you know. The ages are getting older. There's a think tank saying they're going to push it to 70, even for my age group. So Rachel, 75, my kids, 75. You can't rely on it. You can't rely on the state pension providing everything.
I think that's got to be part of the education is educate future generations that you just can't rely on the state pension. You've got to take responsibility and start saving early. And as unsexy as it is, it's one of those classics, I think, that fall into the important but not urgent categories. It is all of that, and I can see it. Like you get to a stage and your whole life, you're thinking, I've got to put money in my pension, but I've got schools and kids and cars and mortgages and just life expenses to deal with, and we've got to think of it first rather than last.
So it's a big change of attitudes, really, isn't it? And much younger, starting, thinking of it much younger. I know my experience of pensions in my teens or early teens was going with my grandmother to draw her pension out on a Monday morning or whatever, and queuing with a lot of people who had been in the war who were also drawing out their pensions. And I think that sort of gives you a bit of a checkered view of life at that particular age, doesn't it? So,
do you know, on that note though, Matt, can I just, sorry, you're mid breath there for another sentence.
No, you're fine, Sam.
On that note about you being with your grandmother, a lot of how we handle money is taught to us by our caregivers. So whether that's because you spent more time with your grandmother or whether you have parents around you, whoever it might be, it doesn't take long before you start to think about your own money habits and how they were actually introduced to you through the people that were your role models. And some of the conversations I now have, or all of the conversations I have with my clients, and when I'm first meeting them, is to find out a bit about what their history was like with money. What was money like for them growing up? What did their parents think of money? Were they savers? Were they spenders? Did they have pocket money? Did they save it or not? And it is a really common pattern. Those people that have a mindset to save money will always have more money, and without fail. It is just a mindset. Those that spend money will never have money, unfortunately, unless they start to. You're giggling there, Matt. Is that you in that camp?
I'm just looking for my wallet with the moths in it.
But you can change your habit, you can change your behavior, and the earlier you are that you're alerted to it, or you start to identify it. And I think that's more the point. Education runs not only to types of investments and how to save, but also around the mindset and belief of money and liking money and not thinking money is an evil thing. Why do we say things like money is the root of all evil? How come? It's not evil, is it? Actually, it's an enabler in life. But you have to see some of these things, the sayings that people had in the past. And it perhaps has a subconscious effect on us, and why we perhaps are repelled from saving money. I don't know, it's open discussion, but I see it in my day-to-day, and I love this topic. Very fascinating.
I don't know how old you are, Sam, and whether you're similar age to me, but when I was at school, we had ladies that came in and we had little books, and once a week we went and bought a little stamp and they stamped our book. I don't even know whether it's part of the national savings, I can't remember, but I was probably 6 or 7. It's when we still had milk in bottles with straws, you know.
Yeah, I remember those.
I am now, but yeah, and I think from that age I always learnt at school that, you know, if you put that away, and one expression that always stayed with me is the first pound you save works the hardest. So that money that you've got sat in your Sun Alliance pension, Matt, has worked longer for you than the money that you might invest tomorrow, you know, because it's had the time for that interest, you know.
Yeah, did you know Warren Buffett, arguably one of the most wealthiest men in the planet, started investing at the age of 10 years old, and most of his wealth has been as a result of the longevity of his savings plan, not where he's invested. And that is little and often, isn't it? Little and often.
Yeah. I mean, having a habit is having a habit, isn't it? And your point, Darryl, there's always something. There will always be something. It doesn't matter how much you earn. You can be not very well off at all, or you can be a millionaire. There is very little month left, or very little money left in everybody's month. It doesn't matter how much. You just spend to what you've got. The only way to save really is to do it the front end of the month, so you've never got it and you don't.
Pay yourself first.
Save first.
Yeah.
That's what I've been trying to teach my kids. We'll see how they go.
Do you know, Darryl, my parents are in the room next door, and if they'd heard half of this conversation, I think they'd be really shocked by me. So, love you, Mum and Dad. So we're getting to the top of the hour. We've been having this conversation for an hour, and it's really flown by. I'm really appreciative to you all joining for me. I've got one more question to ask.
Yeah, before you do, I'm just really conscious that we've changed the topic on you. You asked about the future of retirement, and we've all been talking about saving for retirement, or saving for the future, perhaps. We're not calling it retirement anymore.
You're dead right, but I think there's a couple of things, Darryl, that's come out of this, and I'll sum up in a minute. But what I would like to know, and I'll start with you, Darryl, if that's all right. What is retirement going to look like in 10 to 20 years' time?
It'll be part-timement.
Part-time. I like that. Nikki?
Yeah, I think flexible. I think a lot of people will carry on working or volunteering. It's just the way it's going. Well, that's definitely what I'm seeing. I see very few people that stop, you know, on one day. I think it's just going to be a flexible, gradual, graceful slide.
I love that. I love that. Rachel, what do you think?
I think that if you choose the cruise ship and the slippers and watching the chase at 5 o'clock every weekday, then that's your choice. But ultimately, you can have whatever you want. Retirement looks like what you want it to look like.
Brilliant. Thank you. And Sam, I'm coming to you last, because you've done the research. You're doing the MSc on, is a full stop better than a gradual thing? So what's it going to look like for 10 to 20 years' time?
So I think the traditional employed role, and bearing in mind my MSc is based on people who are in employed positions and not those that are business owners or entrepreneurs or anything like that. So I think for those people, there is this really strong need to have a hard stop, absolutely. But there's life beyond it for these people. So that's what we will be seeing. We will be seeing people who are in more traditional roles having the hard stop, but then moving on into something else and using their skills that they've developed in the corporate world to better other things, whatever that might be. building up a business of their own or helping someone else's business, or even just community work because they've got enough income for themselves. The other thing as well is just coming back to like retirement. What does retirement look like? I think that the more people get educated around what they can do with their wealth or with their lives, and that actually it's about the values people have in themselves and how they conduct and live their lives. And I think this last 12 months we'll see this shift. I, for one, and I didn't know the pandemic was happening, but I certainly got disillusioned with corporate life, hence why I chose to set my business up. But I also did do last summer what many people are doing, and that's build this office in the garden so that I could have my life and what I wanted from my life, my business, all in the same area. So I mean, right now I'm listening to 5 chickens running around the backyard, and the dogs are around me, and you know, it's everything I would have wanted from my life, but I'm trying to bring elements of my retirement into my day-to-day now, and trying to encourage everybody that comes through our doors to do the same. My husband's an example where he would always say, he's, by the way, traditional job, National Grid, since he was 16 years old, would often say, I will do that volunteering at the railway, which is what he does. I'll do that when I'm retired. I'll do that when I'm retired. And yet I would see people not get to retirement, or get to retirement and be very ill. And so I just said to him only a year ago, right, if you don't do it now, I'm going to pick up the phone and book it myself. And then he did. And now he has something he can see beyond his working life because he's doing it now. And if anything forbid happened and he didn't wake up the next day, he's already got that slice of his retirement that he's enjoying now while still working. So I think this blended approach is definitely the way forward.
It's really important. I'm really glad he's doing that, because like I say, both my parents aren't here. My dad retired at 65 and was dead by 67. And you've spent 40 odd years paying into a scheme that then, you know, what for? So yeah, absolutely, seize the day. I mean, you've obviously got to save, but if you can try and do that blended approach, and I see that too with lots of people, I think it's the way forward.
I think that's the word that's come out of this evening is blended, isn't it? It's about, well, there's a couple of things that really have come out of tonight. I think, judging by the conversation, and I'm really grateful for all of you joining me, and we have really had a thorough discussion, I think, certainly about the financial implications of retirement. But judging by the conversation, I don't think any of us are in a rush to stop working, really. I think we're all, you know, appreciative of the years that we've got ahead of us, the health that we have at the moment, and the fact that we enjoy what we're doing. I think there's a real passion that's come from the 4 of you, so thank you very much. What is really, really apparent, and there's a phrase that says the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, and if you can't plant it 20 years ago, let's plant it today, and that is really, really apparent from all of you. And I think again, we as a country, as an industry, as a worldwide, as anything, we've all got to start thinking of education at a really early stage of how do you map out your future and how do you create that sense of purpose. And if we've got that sense of purpose, then we can go back to some of the expressions that Dan Buettner was saying about the longevity of our lives, and how do we get up every morning. I've said to Sam before, you know, we've got X many Monday mornings that we need to get up for. How do we have that sense of purpose that we actually look forward to a Monday morning in our retirement, and it doesn't just become slippers? It all remains to me to say thank you so much for joining us this evening. I hope you've all enjoyed it. I hope everyone that's listening has enjoyed it as well. Thank you for a thoroughly interesting conversation. We are the Future Thinkers. We hopefully have given you some future thought as to the future of retirement, certainly the future of pensions, and maybe even changing the name of pensions in years to come, or changing the name of retirement, making it, I'm going to sound just like my dad, but making it a little bit more funky at an earlier age now. So hopefully that's given everyone food for thought. What we do with the Future Thinkers is carry on the conversation with our networks, which happen in and around Milton Keynes and shortly in other areas of the country, to carry on discussing the future of retirement. And we'll be doing that throughout June, so that we can carry the conversation on our safe and supportive walking trips out in nature. Thank you once again to everyone that's joined us this evening. I've been Matthew Hoddenott. I really appreciate everyone that's been listening, and we'll say good night. Thank you very much.